This time in Tim's garage. Let's see if we can fire the old girl up. The car itself is getting really close to being completed or running on the road, which completed is, you know, if you've ever done a project, they're never really complete. But the car is close to being able to run on the road. We need a drive shaft for it. But one of the challenges was to turn a non-fuel injected car into a fuel injected car. Now I chose to try and use as much of the cars that I had as possible, which meant I tried to use parts of the stock fuel system, the hard lines, to connect AN fittings to, rather than run an entire AN fitting braided line for the fuel system. This is a cool little, it's not actually a regulator, the regulator's on the other side, but what this does is makes the flow of fuel much more consistent, which is a cool thing. So that's for consistency on the fuel rail, and it stops the pulse that the fuel pumps work on to make that run just much more steadilier. That's the new word for today. I've pulled that off at some point for some reason. Smart of me. Anyway, that goes into the fuel injectors. That's your fuel injector rail, fuel injectors plugs there. So this here, this hose here is the main one. It's where we're getting our fuel from, and we're going to try and run from the tank using the hard line. And if you look down here, you can see we'll get a better light on that one day. There it is. That's an AN fitting, which is fitted to the existing hard line that'll supply fuel for the engine. But we need the return. I've worked out that this line here is the return, and so we'll return that back into the tank. We go back here, and I've got a little return space here that I can fit that to and run the return. It's quite a small one, so I'll see what I can do with that. Otherwise I may need to put a bigger size return piece on that, and then we'll work out what we're doing with the electrics with there. We've also got in here some of our fittings and some line that we'll be able to run with some of our El Cheapo AN fittings. Also have, I don't know if I'll use it or not, but it does come, I do have a fuel pressure regulator there if we need an aftermarket one, but I am half tempted just to use the stock one for now. We'll start running our fuel loom here. I'll run that up the side of the car. At the moment, trying to lose everything, but the boot is chockers full of what once was a Sora. A couple of drive lines in there. There's the old sump. This is where I keep all my parts, engine mounts. The beauty of it is such a massive boot, but right underneath all of that is where I want to get access to where the fuel pump comes out. That's not going to happen anytime today, I don't reckon, but I want to get a rough idea of where that the electrics will run up the side of the car. We will run that through inside the car up to the front, but I'm also going to lay out the rest of this fuel system. But I'm going to see if I can actually get a fitting onto here, a -6 AN fitting, and so I can run the return, and then we will go from there. fuel pumps in, you can see we've had to cut some little spaces. That one needs a little bit more work, but cut some spaces for the AN fittings to fit in there nicely, but they fit very nicely, and it actually all works. Surprise, surprise. So far, all that's happening here is you can see we've also run some of the electrics when I'm filming this, which means there's a battery located there. I've just hooked up a thing that I hit on the battery once it's earthed out over there, and it runs the pump without doing anything else, just checking for leaks and pressurizing the system. So that is my little tester, but that will plug into this loom. It goes all the way to the front. The stock, that's your stock fuel gauge, all still plugs in, and it's looking pretty cool. So that is the turbo feed, that's your fuel feed, that's your fuel return. I've had to add another fitting into that. That's just a breather that all sits in there. Cool thing, extra fuel caps in the back right there. If we follow this fuel system through, let me grab the torch and see if I can get a shot under here. What we see is so you can see the fuel filters mounted under there, AN fittings, hoses adapting to hard lines and braided lines, but it all sits in there really nicely. A few cable ties, but it all sits underneath the car nicely. Goes into, comes out with the light shining just right. Comes out there. We'll need to move one of those hoses out of the way so the wheel doesn't hit, but it'll be all good. You see the hard line there turns into the braided line, comes into then down to there. We'll get some light for us. There they are. Ta-da! All our fuel lines all done. That's covered up by some heat shields. Oh, this one here. Made some heat shields there. Pretty simple. Made up a little bracket. I need to add to that. I'll paint up those brackets in a bit. But then fuel system is done, which is cool. Onto the electrics. So we've got all our fuse relays. I'm just marking stuff. That's why that's there. Mark everything as we go. And over here I've just finished putting together the tacho wiring, just working out what goes where. Looking that up. Now I've got the ECU down here. What I'm going to do is find the pin out for the ECU and find out where this green one is the signal, tacho signal. So I can find that from the ECU, I can plumb that in. So while I'm doing the electrical work, I'm trying to get it all in my head before we start putting it into the car and working that stuff out from there. The other one I'm about to start doing is
we've got our HDI, Hybrid Performance International. These things are awesome. This is our boost control solenoid for the turbo, and it's electric boost control solenoid. So I've just snipped out the bag, and I'm going to have a quick look at what we've got here to work with as far as these wires. It's got a simple little plug that goes from the controller. Here's the loom that comes off the controller, so you can run that through the firewall or wherever, and that'll plug onto that little clip. But I want to see what else we need for this. At a guess, I'm assuming if it's like normal, 2 blacks. That's not normal, but we'll see. Usually, there are 2 blacks too, they're the same. Usually black is earth, red is power, and yellow or orange is consistent power. So one of those will be the power that comes from the battery terminal all the time, and then the red or whatever will be coming from the auxiliary. So when you turn, or your ignition, they call it either one. When you turn the car on, that one fires up, it's good to go. What I've got together is many versions of manuals, and I was able to track down, which is awesome, a guy that is in New Zealand. It's a specialist within our wiring stuff, and I'm looking at him pretty heavily on what we're going to do with this, and so have actually purchased the wiring diagrams and stuff off him. I won't show you them in detail because obviously that's one of his income makers, and I'm not going to do that to him, and cost a big chunk, so I want to be honouring that. But it's awesome. Like there's multiple documents that are sitting there, plus a couple of links to some videos, so hopefully in my limited brain capacity I'm able to follow some of them. But just he's done a really good job of just, you know, what does the alternator wiring plug and harness look like, how does that work, the full wiring, and then the other thing you need with this is a relay, bunch of relays and a handful of fuses. And so this week we've got many deliveries. One of the deliveries is an eBay pack of 5 relays, which is good. I haven't actually looked at them properly until now, so have a quick look in. Each relay comes with many connectors, which is great. Yeah, it's a nice little relay, nice little box, 5 sends off each of those, which is cool. So power, and then your earth, and then your trigger, and then your outs. So they're all sort of there, which is cool. Fits on there, and it also comes with a pack of clips, which is what we also want for this. There's only so much you can do with parts that you have lying around before you have to go down the street and get some stuff. So let's jump in the car, shoot down the street. I've got 2 or 3 hours free at the moment, so I'm going to make the most of it. Got to get some paint, got to get some bolts, I need to get some fittings. Mostly we're trying to get the water feed out of the block to an A-end fitting. So we'll see if we can find one of those somewhere. I don't know if it exists, we'll have a look. And there's something else.
some stuff for the exhaust studs. That's right, some exhaust studs for the new, the new gasket and stuff. I did order a whole kit from the States with gaskets, seals, everything like that, which is designed to redo the engine. So it's just a seal, I guess an engine rebuild kind of kit. It doesn't have, you know, rings and some of that stuff, but essentially it's got all the gaskets throughout the engine and stuff. We're not going to go deep. We're just going to do tappet covers and that sort of stuff, but and try and fix up a couple of leaks, because if we go deep, I'm going to end up forging the engine and going nuts. I don't want to do that yet. We'll see. But just want to get the car running for now. So let's go down the street. Just sitting at just gone to NZ and got this. Oh, look at that! That thing is amazing. That turns that thread that came out of the block into a -6 AN fitting. Very, very happy. It's exactly, we want to sit that there so it rattles around lots. On to the next shot. Yeah, so this is our shopping for the day. We left with went with a few bolts, knowing we needed a few things. Came back with all the nuts, bolts, washers and stuff for our sump to mount that properly, which is great. Heaps cheaper than I thought. We've got our nuts for our engine mounts, which would be great. We've got a 2.5 inch exhaust flange or double flange to be able to weld onto our exhausts, so we can finish mounting that. In here is our exhaust studders, so studs and nuts, which is awesome for our exhaust, and that'll fit based on the one we've got, which is cool. And our water feed line for the turbo turns that thread, which comes out of the block, into an AN6 fitting. Yay! Then we got some stuff to paint our manifold. I just bought a bit of tape, got an etch primer, which is for the aluminium, bit of etch on there, and then we've got our plastic for the plastic primer. We'll prime that, and then we got to choose, hey look, DG Auto Paints, we got to choose our colour and the reveal, which is on the cat, which is why I'm holding it so you can't see it. I'm going to keep the secret. Yeah. That'll be cool. Anyway, there we go. That's a good day of shopping and a good way to spend a couple of hours wandering around the street, meeting people and getting good stuff done. 1, 2, 3, 4 shops, half-hour shop, couple of hours, bang. It's great. While the engine's in the car, because the engine is about to come out, like I said, it is a beautiful day today, and the weather's is supposed to go pretty terrible pretty soon. So I'm actually going to pull the engine out today. That's the plan, and sit it inside the shed. There's so much room in here, so that I can work on it, do the tappet covers and paint some stuff and spend some time working on that, getting the sump fully fitted, doing a few of those jobs. While the engine's out, I want to track some of the wiring from the exhaust as well and see how that works. And the idea is, once that's done, we are about ready to, we're looking at a final fitment. I'm actually going to pull the engine out. I've still got a face sitting on it. I love that bad stuff. Yeah, these front ones. They should do.
What's that? Oh, that's good, yeah. That's good, I got it.
How you doing?
Yeah, it's alright, you got it sorted. So now, what are we going to do? Just put it in there. Push it really fast. Yeah. Don't want to bash up all your paint in that, yeah. Get it up a bit. What's that? Yeah, it's still pretty tough touching here. Yeah, it's touching actually on that little bracket. Doesn't take much forward to get it off. With that, catches free again. Of course. So then, yeah, when you go across here and put it down and in a bit, it won't be too far up. Yeah, just need to help push. You need to push it as you go, that's all. I need to push it and then you
Lose the whole thing. Yep. I have one more hose to connect on the turbo, and then essentially that's done. The turbo's plumbed up, which means, besides some bit of heat work, fluids are almost ready. I need to buy some copper gaskets for a banjo fitting on my power steering, but other than that, we're actually good to go as far as fittings and all that goes. That's pretty scary. So I'm using some stag joining paste on some of these fittings, like water fittings and stuff. It just helps it seal a little bit better. I've had issues in the past with fittings just not quite wanting to sit and do what I want them to do. So get in there just a little bit more. Don't drop that. Got it all down there. And then I'm just going to do one little thing on this. Just want to use my squirter bottle for windscreen wipers. So I just want to heat that up quick. Be back. I'm back. So grab a cup of tea. Oh, really, it's just hot water. Didn't even bother boiling the kettle for this one. I just hit hot water out of the tap. Let's see how this works. It's a bit of an older hose. This is the original XF water hose. So we'll see. See if it works, eh? Car's got fluids in it. Trans fluid is good, oil good, coolant good. Haven't put power steering fluid in because I need to go and buy a couple of just seals for a banjo bolt here. Just need a couple of gaskets for that. Get some copper crush gaskets for that. Banjo bolts are cool. The way they work is they shoot oil up the center, and then they up the center, out the sides, or vice versa. This application is up the center, shoots out there. It's got a rim that sits there, and then that pressurizes that, flicks the power steering fluid for this application where it needs to go. Oil, power steering, whatever, depending on what you're doing. So I like that. So need to go do that. So we'll shoot down the street in just a moment. Almost at tidy this stuff up stage so that we can turn the car over. That's scary. I'm just going to check the fuel system and pressurize that again in a second, because there was a fitting I wasn't 100% sure about. If that's not right, I'm also going to go and get another fitting for that. So a couple of trips down the street. I also want to get a master kill switch for the battery for the back, but it's getting really close, really close. It's fun, cool. Working on fuel systems, just buttoning up a few things. Had a an issue with one of the fuel lines, bit of a backyard fix, but it worked, which is good. So that's now good. I'm just going to give it one more boot, a bit more pressure, and just see if that still holds fuel, if that holds fuel, I'm confident. Need to make another heat shield for the fuel system, just so it doesn't go anywhere near the exhaust. Another heat shield near coolant oil return down there. A few more electrics. I'm going to do another bit of electrics on the fuel send. But what I think I'm going to do now is pressurize this, see if that works. If that works, I'm going to move on to the throttle cable, and we'll go from there. Today is all over the shop. I've been boiling hot, freezing cold, back's killing me from injured my back somehow, doing weird stuff. Anyway, still got to make up a bracket for this, but right now what I want to do is feed it through my throttle cable. Anyway, need to measure that, make a little bracket that'll fit in there and do there, and slide it into there somehow in a way that'll fit and stay. Pressurised the fuel system before, like I said. However, left the system pressurised, it hasn't held, and we're leaking fuel. So it's not much, but I can still smell fuel. There's some weepage there. Don't want any weepage, of course, and it's so close to a dump pipe. Never going to risk that in a million years. So I'm going to pull that off and do exactly what I said I was going to do. Take that in and see if they can press on a different fitting. Essentially all I'm doing now is looking for an auxiliary power that's inside the cabin that'll run enough voltage to run the electronic boost control solenoid. I don't want to start the car up without that being right. The turbo system, I'm not going to rev it enough for the turbo to kick in or anything, and even the hose I won't connect that because I want to be able to blow out any muck in there without blowing straight into the intake of the car. But that's where we're at. It's exciting because it means we're really close to doing good stuff. So just connected the battery, we'll jump in and see what we can do. Thing fire up for the very first time in what will be about 4 years since the engine fired up since we drove the car from Sydney to Ballarat. A couple little things to button up. Got a bit of help coming in as we sort out the electrics. And many hands make light work. Many hands make light, not like, liked work. Let's dive into it. Okay. Good to go again?
I don't know if you got power.
What the heck have we got the power?
So should we take this out in case something explodes?
No power. No power, brother.
Okay. Don't know how safe this is, but that's how we roll. It's seriously the longest set of jumper cables I've ever seen in my life. It's so good, man.
You got impatient and couldn't wait for it to get
Oh, 4 amp charger, it's going to take till about 6 in the morning. To get it.
Well, he was 6 then.
Oh, no. He does. He does.
good?
Yep.
You ready?
Yeah, your oil.
Bit more oil?
Yeah,
There's like a
everywhere.
shower under it, darling.
Alright. There's a...
I wish I'd videoed that. That was just like,
I wonder if it's leaking under the, because I just tightened that up.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
that's
he
le-
needs
if
probably
that's-
some towels,
No,
darling.
it's undoing it. That's loose as a goose. And we just did it up then. It's undoing itself. What is?
Oh,
Under
towels,
pressure.
darling.
Under pressure.
Oh, like, sorry.
Is it not pressure sealed?
Just go in the rags.
Yeah.
You know, rags and chips and Josh's? Yeah. See? Lucky I stood in this spot. You'd have to really do a good spot now, Josh. That's why I stood out here. See?
Oh,
man.
Oh,
Yeah,
there's
see
something
that?
leaking there
Huh?
as well.
Yeah, you got power steering fluid over your side.
Not much, but still.
Well,
Yeah.
don't you get-
What I'm looking at is, this feels like it's actually not pulling up tight.
Alright, I'm going back inside.
Alright.
No, Mum, the fence.
Ah,
Oh, look how much it is. Wow.
yeah.
It's actually unthreaded
That's
itself.
what I said to him. It was like that you turning on the shower. It was kind of like,
What it's doing is, I feel like I'm only doing my hand, but it feels like if I keep going, it's gonna like spin the thread, like actually cross, like it's actually not pulling up and holding tight.
Okay.
But
Is that which side?
power
though?
steering, that's just nothing on that side. But
Yeah.
this here, if I hold it, I nearly actually want you to start it so I can see what it's doing.
Well, there's plenty of power steering fluid in it.
This is oil. but
Yeah, I know, but that's what I mean. That's not. I'll see it. That's totally smaller. That's, yeah. You're
Like,
more, right?
Is the
Want me to try again or not?
I'm just trying to think. Look, I just want to know why it's unspinning itself. Like, I'll hold it, but don't worry me. Like,
Speak to it, you dirty.
Not the towel, mate. Not the towel. Everything else you can.
I'm not going to hold it, but I want to know why it's unspinning it.
Yeah. That's really weird.
I'm happy for you to try and crank it over and see why it's unspinning it if I'm hanging on to it.
Okay. Well,
Nah, it's not. It's not hot. It's...
I'll go. Tell me when to stop, okay?
Yeah, I'll yell it, yeah. Yeah, it's your oil relocation thing. Yeah.
Just start
Because
spewing.
it just popped out. It's not actually, yeah, it's completely like
not it's popping
Feel.
out. It's like let's just say like it's the
Visually.
wrong filter. It's not screwing up tight, and it's not. If I keep going, it's spinning. And then when you start it, the pressure of the oil going through it pops it off the actual thread.
Okay.
So it's like that's what it is.
So it's the wrong thread, maybe.
Yeah, like it's the wrong. Yeah,
Probably wouldn't.
that's what it is. But if that's firing. But what? Yeah.
Well, the car starts.
See, it's going. I'm holding it. I'm holding
There you
it.
go, man.
I'm holding it, and so yeah, it was up. But then when it fired, I went, yeah, I'm going to get the oil out. It popped the seal.
Oh, yeah.
I was hanging on to it, and it popped the actual air filter out of the thread. So
That's right.
it's the wrong. It's like what is it? The best one is a 10 mil on a
Like a
not
medium
half.
or coarse thread, like.
Yeah, and you're screwing it, you're like, yeah, it's going in, but it's not pulling out. Yeah. So
It's like you got a 10 mil, but you're trying to use the laser, but you're
so the
taking
filter's
10.
wrong, or the thread, yeah, they're not matching.
Well, she started, and then stopped, and then started, and then puked oil everywhere. Great, but it starts, which is pretty cool. So a huge thanks to Josh from Josh's Garage.
No worries. Good challenge.
Thanks,
Good
mate.
challenge.
Helping out with the electrics and undoing all of my mistakes and making it work, which is great. But all in all, we almost had it right, but I'm happy to have somebody else here because we had to start and go through it all from scratch and did find a few errors that I'd made along the way, which was great. And in between about 4 different sets of instructions, we got it to run. We doubted ourselves because there's a bunch of conflicting info with some of this, but it's not as hard as what it looked to be. But anyway, here we are. It runs, it's great. While we're not running it, while you're not hearing it run and rev and do smoky burnouts, number one, it doesn't have a drive line, no tail shaft. But the main one is the oil filter kit. Spin on, either it's a wrong filter with a wrong filter thread, or it's there's something really wrong with it. So yeah, that's the reason we're not running it, because it's just puking oil everywhere.
Yeah, I don't think I can get a good shot of that
That's
because
right,
it's
mate.
bad lighting.
So, thanks Rylan for doing camera work. Yeah, looks so but it runs. 4 years in the making. On Saturday, it's the next closest day to spending that full day on the car. The car started, which is great. So that is the first time in 4 years. Once again, a massive shout out to Josh from Josh's Garage for coming in and giving us a hand. Just needed an extra pair of hands and eyes and somebody that's a bit more experienced with electrics than me to get the electric part of this car done. But he was incredible. It was really good with two of us because one of us could be checking the terminal with the voltmeter or the test light, and the other one could be connecting stuff the other end. Really, probably saved me about 1,000 loops of the car and probably about a week's worth of my own understanding of wiring and stuff. So huge thanks to Josh for that. But the car started. Now, what leaked is, let's go have a look. So underneath here, this is what happened when we started the car. It was hard to see, it was a long day and it was late at night. That is oil. Oil's gone everywhere, and if you can see, I don't know if you can get a real understanding of that filter there, but that is covered in oil. That is wet. And so what's happened is when I gave the measurements for the oil filter thread to the workshop that I went to, the car parts joint, they either didn't test it or just gave me a generic filter. It felt like it fitted though, to their credit, and not trying to put all the blame on them. It felt like it fitted, but as soon as it was under pressure, it just popped down and just puked oil everywhere. Good thing that means is good oil pressure, so it's not all a bad story. So that's okay. I can live with that. Good oil pressure bang. What else do we need to work on? The other thing that started leaking was this fitting from our power steering there. You see that's wet. Need to get in there. That's really hard to get into at the moment, so but I'll remove some of this stuff. Get in, do up that fitting properly. But what that also means is the power steering, I'm picking positives, means that my power steering pump was working and pressurizing, and that's the pressure side, so that was working. I can see I've got a little leak down the back there too. So if I'm honest, there it is. I cannot even remember if I fully did them up properly or not. We will find out. But anyway, so let's review the fluids on this car. I hooked up a fuel line. When I pressurized that, it leaked. I put the radiator and the coolant system on. When I filled that up, it wasn't totally my fault, but I probably should have checked it. One of the bungs for the drain tubes down the bottom wasn't done up anywhere near well enough, so it leaked. Fuel and water. We've got oil now, so oil's leaking and the power steering is leaking. So all the 4 fluids that I put into it are leaking. Oddly enough, transmission and brakes aren't leaking, but you know, we're not there yet. We'll see. But pretty much everything that I've filled up has leaked for one reason or another. The more I think about just the power steering, I actually don't think I did that end up well. I think when I started plumbing that up, I just was test fitting it. I hadn't put heat shielding over it or anything, or anchored all the things in place yet. I think I was just trying to get it to work, and obviously I didn't do it up anywhere near tight enough because that was the original fitting, so that should all go in right. Anyway, so let's clean up our mess, and we'll get some more filters and we'll get the car running again. That's the goal. So it started. That's the bit that I'm most excited about. So that's great. Let's clean up our mess. So when I went and asked, actually makes me feel better, when it wasn't fully my mistake. I went in, asked for the right thread sizes. This is what the shop gave me. The shop was wrong. We all know that that happens, and they can't get it right 100% of the time, but now I've got the exact measurements of that filter, of the screw and adapter. I did buy multiple of these, thinking that I'd dumped the oil a few times, so I thought I was in advance, but that's all right. We will need to go and buy an oil filter in a bit. So that's one of the things we're going to do. Going to get an oil filter. That's all right. I don't think I need to do anything else with that system. Obviously a good pressure. I'm going to check the oil. I'm not going to put oil back in it until we've powered it up. I'm going to leave that kitty litter down there to soak up the goodness that is real expensive, beautiful, fresh oil. Well, time to get some parts, see if we can get this thing welded up. Got to get some hoses and an oil filter. Got my list of what I need to get on the efficient piece of cardboard that was sitting next to me when I wrote the list. Let's go.
Go.
Come on. Car.
That's alright. Injectors and bugs and that, I don't think a bit of free up. That's awesome. It's starting to go through it, it's running more and more. It's looking good. Good. Well, good. It's back on good. That's awesome, dude. Yeah, that sounds good.
That's insane!
It's running nice and smooth.
That sounds awesome!
No, it's it.
Oh.
Good. Really good. See the little bubbles like it's doing its thing. Turn the sound back.
Oh, I don't know. We're going to turn it off.
The exhaust actually done up or not? Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Exhaust is on, yeah.
I'm going to turn it off because I want to leave it for Josh.
Yep.
I want to start again with Josh here
Alright.
and see what a melting there.
Oh, yeah. It's hooked up this time.
I reckon. That's here. I reckon it's power steering.
Yeah.
I can feel it. Power steering. Yeah. Oh, good. Smooth. I need to see me some turbo.
Yeah. Oh, it's good now. Oh, that's not.
It's hard. And it's not. I sort of pictured the whole place being full of smoke and all sorts of stuff, mate. It's not. It's actually pretty smooth. Like, seriously.
It's like a buoy or something.
Back, everybody! Someone got a fire extinguisher? The car unlocked him if you need the fire extinguisher.
Like oil.
It's red underneath the car.
Oh,
That's underneath.
red.
Well, that's red car. That's not red car. Yeah, one.
Oil on that. It could be a transmission. Let's put some of that down there. We'll see.
See, that's something like that.
More on this side. Hey, Grandpa. Yeah, good. This is the sound of the XF runner. Yeah. This is the sound of a burning one. Just got to go. So, yeah. Up and down. Yeah. So I'm seeing the upper coming.
Oh, it's actually pretty quiet, honestly.
If you strip the oil down now, it's all manifold.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
So it just needs to do a hole there. It's up
I reckon you're down the power steering pump. Steering pump. No, it's that's it.
That doesn't sound like, yeah, it's not even out there, but
When you're getting a lot of pressure, it could be a bearing inside.
Yes, it's not lit too.
No worries, that will lock it up.
Steering pump, yeah. Put on lock. Here it does release now. Probably just got air in here too.
Oh yeah, it could do that. But it sounds like there's no oil in it.
Yeah.
Is there oil coming out of the power steering pump? Like,
Pretty around
it
dry.
seems like it's right there. Where the normal one, you should be able to put a lid on it.
It's actually quite, it's pretty quiet otherwise. Like the motor seems right otherwise. It's like, that's the main one. It doesn't ride off all the fair there. You get down there, nothing. There's just nothing you get to the I guess it is not outside. That's good, but it's running good. Motor itself is getting nice and smooth up. Not too bad, it's not quite.
No, that's not smoking.
These cubes in that roof. When you rev it, you get a little grip.
Oh yeah, it's got Maybe that's my problem with 200. It's not the one big one. Yeah, burn it off. You're onto something, Tim. My buddy was smoking. That's all. I do an oil change and my oil reserve is in the exhaust. Just take my exhaust. Yeah, I want that. Have you got the turbos on?
I do now.
Depends on what the thermostat's going to open up as.
That's the thermos. Mate,
That's good, Jim.
that's real good.
Real good. I think it's really good. And now it's all that stuff off.
I let it cool down.
Yeah,
Just move some of the vehicles. That's why I haven't parked there, you know?
It's like all the way down there.
So on there, so it's easy to get the vehicles out of the way.
He's got that little oil in, and that's not too bad.
We'll nip that up. And then
Yeah, everything else is good.
No, we need the oil. Reconvert it just to one wheel. Which side spins?
relocation kits. And so there we have it. the Lord Fexus is running. The car is running, it's idling, it's revving, the computer's doing its programming thing, getting used to having different turbo and intake and all that sort of stuff a part of it. And so at the moment, super happy with it. Really looking forward to tracking a drive shaft in it and just buttoning up a few different little bits and pieces. The wiring is still everywhere, all over the place, so probably got another good day or two of just wiring. And when I say a day or two, this is obviously, I'm not a mechanic, this is my hobby, this is my passion, and so I'm learning as I go. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this, and so constructive feedback is really welcome. I actually don't mind people saying, hey, why don't you do this? Very minimal, you know, I don't get a lot of hate with the videos that I make, and I really do appreciate that, because I know some channels and some YouTube people, you know, it's the internet, so you get keyboard warriors everywhere, you should be doing, and all that sort of stuff, but I get very minimal of that, and what I generally do get is like really good comments, which I take on board. And so if I've done something that you go, oh, you could have done this, I actually appreciate it, because I'm learning as we go. The reason I do these videos and the reason for Lord's Fexus is really to challenge people to have a go. Don't be afraid of biting something bigger than what you thought you could take on. Like take on a project, give it a go, see what skills you can learn along the way. I've never done electrics in a car in my life to this depth, other than the odd stereo and maybe putting in central locking and door switches. Really, I hadn't done much at all on cars, so this was a huge learning step for me. So the reason for this project is for me to learn some skills, learn how to fabricate, learn how to do turbo systems, water feeds, oil feeds, petrol feeds. Like it's been such a great learning curve, and I just want to encourage other people to have a go. So I'm always happy to learn. Like I said, there's people out there, I get comments all the time, oh, did you think of this? I'm like, no, no idea, that's awesome. I just had a phone call with my dad today with a little issue that I found a little leak in it. I'm like, oh, how do I fix that? And he goes, oh, you just do blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, never even thought of that. Gold. So we're always learning. Don't be afraid to offer a constructive criticism. I think nearly always it's the heart that you give that really matters. But thanks for watching. This has been probably one of the longest episodes for a very long time on a car, and that's because this has been months and months, probably 6 months of on and off work on this thing. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time when this car will be on the road.